Good morning.
Good morning.
Since our audience has heard a lot from each of us, I thought our first question could get framed a little differently. So for the audience's benefit, what we will do is talk a little bit about our point of view, of course, around what does it mean to be future ready, both as leaders as well as the contribution to students in the educational system. However, because you know us already, we're going to do a little something different in the first question, which is to think about how did we let external factors influence our thinking? So, 30 years in the business, right, Donna and Lakshan?
Yeah, 30 plus years, yeah. Yeah.
If you could go back in time, let's go back 20 years. And give yourself a moment to think about what was going on in the world that you took into account as you were making decisions about how you would deploy your leadership in the educational space. And then, when you've both spoken, we'll take it forward 10 years.
Sure.
And then take it to where we are today. So that we can start to understand that there's always an ecosystem that's pressuring what's occurring. And oftentimes we don't stop to say, I wonder how that would change my decision making as a leader. Make sense?
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Neither one of us wants to go first. Well, I'll take it back to the beginning of my teaching career, so 30 years ago, where when I first became a teacher, there were state standards. There was a lot of freedom, however, in curriculum. One of the first schools I taught at had no formalized curriculum, so I was able to make a lot of decisions about what my students were learning and why it was important, and I became a very creative thinker because of being thrust into a space where I had to be creative. So now if you fast forward to about 20 years ago, under No Child Left Behind, now we have much more stringent standards. There's a shift to assessment. There's so much emphasis even today on assessment, on standardized test scores. And at that time, I guess back in, not quite 20 years ago, but like 15 years ago, I was doing my dissertation and I interviewed different English teachers, like 15 of them. And so many of them said, we can't, our hands are tied. We can't employ best practices. We can't be creative because we have to be in a certain space. So that was very challenging to see. And today I think we're shifting back to a bit more flexibility and freedom. I mean, there's been a lot of changes. I won't go into all of them, but we're still driven by assessment, right? If you look at the Common Core standards, which exist and still are widely used, what is it students should know and be able to do is being assessed in a very stringent way versus, well, what do we think as educators, as leaders, students should know and be able to do, and why does it matter, and can't we map to that, right? And can't we take into consideration student well-being and the whole child and not just the score? So that's a few of my thoughts.
Hi. I think now you make me look back. I think when I started my my journey, right? So when I came out of school and college and started looking, the first thing I had to do was hunt for a job, right? So that was all the skill set that I learned at school was probably a couple of the subjects that I liked the most was what got me into the job. Right, so I had to fight against like a gap where 90% of what I had learned was not effectively being used in the first job, or didn't land me the first job, right? And then when I came into the industry, I went with a lot of passion for learning. And as a technologist, I found that the technology landscape was continuously changing, and I had to continuously adapt. And it was my passion to learn from all my peers, my colleagues, that got me into a few places. Then I landed in. I was educated in India. When I came to US, I was like the first in the family to come to US, and back in the late 90s when I came here, it was like a different world altogether, because at that time the technology industry was such that people were dedicated to a line of technology. So in the technology front, we have the front end, back end, databases, and all that. And here you could find experts in either the front end technology, back end technology, and that was like wonderful for me. And I learnt a lot from all my peers, my colleagues, and going back 10 years back, then I felt that the world was changing so much around me that I wanted to do my masters at that time. So a lot of people typically do masters right after graduation, but I did my masters from Harvard like 10 years back, and that was a good catch up with technology and good catch up with the building up my entrepreneurial skills, management skills, plus the how they all interoperate with technology. So I never considered myself a leader till a few years back. When I joined Ernst & Young, I was leading their technology practice and for the cruise companies, right? And then recently I came into the education space, and in the education space, once I came into the education space, then I learned that my passion is education. What I learned from all the people, the family, the work, my colleagues, I want to give back, and that's where I learned that my passion is to educate, and I want to leverage all my knowledge in technology and my love of people to change. That's what the short story, or not so short story. Yeah.
Well, I think, so this is just my personal bias, that every human being is a leader of themselves first and foremost. So you've always been a leader. And think about all the ways in which you adapted over time, both of you, right? So in the 90s, we were starting to see, at least in corporate business, the next major evolution in technology, from 3270 emulation, big data center, mainframe-based work, to distributed computing. I was a business architect for that project at the financial services company I was with. We were fundamentally altering the way of work. What did that do to education? In education, they had to put, everybody remember when every Mac on every school desk?
Yeah.
Right? And that altered the learning experience. It also altered the expectation of the students coming out, being ready to be in a workforce that was using everything digital. Now, we've seen that evolve as well to the point now where it's in the palm of your hand, or it's on your watch, or it's in your eyeglasses. That's over 30 years we have had at least 3 technology evolutions.
Perfect.
And we've probably got more coming.
Yep.
So how do leaders in the education space take into account what's happening in the outer world, and when they're thinking about policy or thinking about curriculum or thinking about training teachers? What are the ways you think about those external influences?
Yeah, sure. That's a wonderful question, right? So because as I mentioned, the technology landscape is difficult even for the people in the technology field, because it's so much changing. Around 2000, when basically in the computer world the years were encoded as 2 digits because of performance reasons, right? And come 2000, we thought the world was going to die because all the computers didn't know the 4-digit year.
They
right?
couldn't do 00.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and then later the distributed computing, the NoSQL, come the NoSQL, they said basically they thought the database need not have any schema. All the database engineers who kind of played around only with like a fixed way of interoperating. That changed, right? So next, now we are at a stage where even the core technologies don't know what's happening because the AI seems to know everything that you already know, right? So it is our claims to know, right? So it is in this world where the traditional ways of what you learn in school, like a programming language or a foundational concept, is not kind of acting good enough, right? Because the world is demanding if any one of you, each one of us looks back, right? So it is like what we learnt from the education system and where we are in our career path, right? So it's just that we were able to just pick and choose a couple of the topics which we liked and either became future leaders or innovators or entrepreneurs. It's never the holistic experience, and I wish the education system can allow us to innovate. I believe that the people are meant to innovate, and the education system should allow us to innovate and develop future leaders. I envision a world where the world is full of debates and topics and of thinkers, of educators. And in order to do that, I believe we need to collaborate further between the education system and the people who have walked the walk of life in either the tech field or the entrepreneurship field or the business field or the coaching field. Yeah.
You're really talking about returning to the Socratic method, right? I mean, I didn't hear this word yesterday. It really struck me. I never heard curiosity. Oh my gosh, isn't this at the heart of what we're up to? Yeah. And when we no longer need to rely on the technology, I read something the other day. IBM published a report a year ago that said they thought that human knowledge doubled every 13. Do you know what I'm going to put in place? Every 13 months. And they predict that by the start of 2027, it will be 13 hours.
Wow.
So the implications of what technology enables to education are profound. What are we developing in the educational experience that prepares a human for knowledge and expertise are no longer the entry ticket?
Well, our schools don't reflect the real world, the majority of them. I won't say all of them, right? It's hard to generalize. There's lots of education innovation happening out there. And we need to take a hard look at, well, what is happening in the real world that we can bring into schools? How can we put value on students driving their own learning? What is relevant and authentic today versus 5 or 10 or 15 or 30 years ago? So I think it's leveraging that as a starting point and then going out to the community and involving the community in schools as well.
And so the gap that we're addressing in this conversation that we're having is the sensitivity to the external influences. Yeah? All right. So you're early in your career. You've done your undergraduate work. You're maybe a student teacher. What do you want from your mentor to help you strengthen your leadership as a teacher?
Well, when I first started, I just really wanted to know, how do I get through a lesson, right? How do I interact with students? How do I meet them where they are? And I didn't really get that from either of my mentor teachers at the time. Both of them were one step away from retirement and just gave me classes and off they went. And so a lot of it was learning on my own. And I think that is why I'm in a leadership space, because I had to be extremely creative, right? And I said this the other day, I sought out my own mentors early in my career to learn and grow and figure it out. And I think most beginning teachers are anchored in survival, and that's what I'm describing. And when I teach a class at the University of San Francisco. I teach my students, who are all student teachers, more or less, that they really need to start thinking about learning outcomes and educating the whole child, rather than what am I doing tomorrow and how am I going to survive? Because if we're going to build people who can go out into the world and be flexible, they need to be thinking about learning outcomes. They need to be thinking about, what can I do? Why does it matter? How do I transfer my learning to a real world context? Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Right. Whole human development. Right. And from a technology point of view, what do you think, Lakshman?
So Yeah, I mean, my bachelor's was ages back, right? Like 3 decades back at least. And at that time, I didn't know, like computer science was evolving, right? So I was my engineering college was one of the topmost now. But at that time, it was like I was only the second batch of computer engineers to come out. And so at that time, like when I look around in my family circle or my friend circle, it was the knowledge of computers were not there. And therefore, every mentor that I looked up to was basically people who were from other fields. They were trying to like use email, use some parts of the technology, but they were not the technology experts. But now I would like to answer that question in a different way now. So now, because the technology has evolved to such an extent that now I'm in a state where I'm basically leading the technology initiatives of a couple of companies, and then working on architectural innovations in the education field. I would like to say that my older son, he graduated from Georgia Tech, right? So his and a lot of his high school mates and friend circle are finding it difficult in the job market now, because the industry and the entrepreneurs are believing that AI is going to replace every human being in the workforce. So it is with that. So now I look back at how to guide those youngsters who are curious minded, who are out with a fresh outlook, even with there's a lot of them have computer science degrees, but the industry is not able to absorb them. The industry is not able to place them in a right position. So at this stage, I believe that with all the knowledge I have gained, and with all the knowledge I have gained from the people around me and from the technology around me, I believe that I have a need to guide them, to mentor them. So it is like what I wanted to come back to that was that I didn't have too many mentors at the time, other than my work colleagues in the technology field. But now I want to give back to my mentees. Yeah. So that's the power I want to bring back. Yeah.
You know, it occurs to me that there's so much that's not technical that we're talking about here. Right?
Yeah.
It's more, I can remember my father saying to me in 1970, I want to say 5. I graduated at the end of my sophomore year in high school. And in terms of work needing to get done, so I went to college early. And he said to me, liberal arts, you need to get a liberal arts education, which of course none of us were thinking about then. And I was already working. I was a salesperson. I was making money. And then we had the crash in America in the early 80s. And that cycle of bust and boom continues to today. And the thing that I realized is that when I finally went back and finished my bachelor's, this was in economics. And why did I do that? So I could learn how to think. So I could learn how to reason my way through anything. I didn't have any mentors telling me that. But I looked at all the other curriculum and went, this is not interesting to me at all. And I was so excited when my microeconomics professor ended up being part of one of the administrations under Bill Clinton, doing economic policy. And I thought, now that's relevant, right? My education is actually helping me be a better human and be a better citizen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do we resource the educational system to think more holistically, more systemically about preparing citizens?
I think one place we need to start is rethinking our teacher training. So most teacher training is you spend a very intensive year or maybe 2 getting a master's degree and a teaching credential. You student teach in a couple of different classrooms, and then off you go. Good luck, right? And yes, now you have your own classroom. There's also intern programs where you become a teacher immediately and you take classes as you're teaching and you are the teacher of record. There's residencies, which is a slightly like more slow release kind of model. So teachers or people learning to become teachers maybe observe, but then usually by the second year, sometimes the third, they're just thrust in as the full-time educator. And teachers aren't prepared. There's so much to learn and to do to teach effectively. Why don't we have a longer pathway? Why don't we have a more creative way of involving people early on in education so that they can observe, learn, maybe co-teach? I mean, my first 4 years of teaching, I was co-teaching with history teachers, and I learned so much because they all had a lot more expertise than I did. So how come we can't do that? I mean, I know a lot of it is time and resources. Money is always a huge factor. But I think we need to reimagine what teacher preparation looks like as a starting point so that we have truly prepared educators who can guide student learning without having to worry about that survival piece early in their careers.
Right. So the external influence, the pressure on teachers to perform before they're really ready is rippling into the students.
Yes.
Who then also feel that same pressure to get out and go do something as opposed to letting themselves develop. I mean, the neuroscience now is saying that the brain doesn't fully develop until nearly 30.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying, you've graduated, go get a job. Like, go decide what your career is. Right? And that's kind of crazy in my book.
Yeah.
So how about you? How do you think we ought to change the paradigm? And we heard on day one to turn Bloom's taxonomy upside down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. How do we activate the creative life force that's in every single person, creating environments for that? What else do we need to do?
Yeah, I think Donna brought up a great point from the teacher perspective. I would like to go back to the student perspective, right? From the student perspective, what I believe is that, like, if you look back, right? So there might have been like in each of your K through 12 systems. Say, for example, let's talk your journey up to the college life, right? So in each of your K through 12 journey, you might have had 5 or 6 teachers per each grade, right? And each teacher would have had like a thought about you as to how you can improve. That was more of intuition of the teacher, or it was never it was a topic at a time or a subject at a time. Yeah. And that feedback system never got into what shall I say, that the teacher who recognized that my son was good at history or at math or on English but never resonated or gave like a formal feedback to the other teacher. So what I believe is that we can build a technology platform with all the great minds around to help the teachers to collaborate better, right? So that they can give a proper feedback to the students collaboratively. Mm-hmm. So we need like a LinkedIn, like a platform where the teachers kind of collaborate and together they help the students. And I believe in building like a digital badge system, which is like your QR code of life, of your education journey, which basically has a footprint of all the teacher feedbacks that you have collected over time and how you have performed. And with the artificial intelligence models, the artificial intelligence is nothing but trained on wiki data nowadays, right? But if we train it with our curriculum and we train it with our all the feedbacks and allow the AI to assess in a 360-degree way, I think with that, and we can give a holistic recommendation, and with the industry professionals working in cohorts with the educators, I believe that we can achieve that system where there is no more the gap between what the education system is producing and what the industry is needing.
And I would just add to that, like, we need to create innovative schools. And so about 8 years ago, there was an initiative called the XQ Super Schools Project. And I was on a team with a a number of people, and we created an innovative school design. And part of this competition was 10 schools would be given $10 million, right? 10 school designs. We didn't make it. We made it to the semifinals, which was great, but also there were far more innovative ideas out there. But those kinds of initiatives are what's really needed for us to step back and say, wait a minute, let's step completely outside of this paradigm that we're so used to, right? We just accept, okay, schools are the way that they are. How can we come together as people and redesign and involve the community in ways that we haven't even imagined? And to do that, we need to all come together, right? It's not just educators, it's not just the tech sphere, it's all of us.
It strikes me that one of the things we said on day one as well was that the origins of the educational system were rooted in commerce, preparing people for commerce, because that's how you build communities. And I'm hearing you say something a little different. And beyond a Venn diagram, so there's the students, there's teachers, there's parents, there's industry, there's government or civics or society. What else would you add to the mix of collaboration?
Yeah, no, so I have a diagram. I'll showcase that, because in like I'm working currently for the nation's report card project, right? So where there are a lot of influences. So one, there is the government legislation, like the ESRA Act and all that basically drives the need for a curriculum or like an assessment or a NAEP-like project, right? And then there are the government bodies that are kind of invested in either doing research on that area or driving the execution of the platform. Then there is the general public who are allowed to take parts of the previous year assessments. Right, so this assessment, the NAEP project, has been going on since 1969. Right, so it evolves over time. So then there are the school administrators and the school staff who feed in, and a sub-select of the students across the nation take the assessment. So therefore, there is the student population, and then there is also interest from the researchers and the university professionals, university advisors, because on the general academia, because they are also invested. Like if you look back, right, the K to 12 education system is totally different from the college and different from the masters, different from the PhD. So a lot of the masters and the MBA courses tend to teach you in a more practical oriented way with more situational approaches and practical knowledge. So there is a lot of interest in the academia to bring back such kind of education also to the earlier stages of life, right? So yeah.
Situational education. That's a new phrase for me.
Yeah.
Huh. What do you want to say to the audience as a call to action?
I think there is a dire need. There is a dire need in the industry and in the education world that either the students are not graduating, or there are a lot of underperformers, and there is statistics to show that a lot of the underperformers are ending up in jail, and they are not able to make a living. And I believe that in our walk of life, in the professional career or the entrepreneurial journey that we are taking, there is a lot of influence we can make on our future. I think the future needs a lot more innovators, a lot more people who are leaders, right? Because there is a lot of gap in our ability to produce leaders, and the technology, while it can help with, like I believe it can help, but there is a scare also, because there there's a scare that the AI already knows so much, so why should we learn, right? So there is that concern or scare that the technology might take over and all the Star Wars kind of future will come out in a negative way. But I don't think there is anything to be scared of. I think we should collaborate. I think the educators of the world know a lot about who the students they are teaching. I think it's time for all of us to collaborate, and the collaboration involves people from all walks of life. So the nerds of the world to the educators of the world. I think let's all collaborate, because the world deserves better students and better students of life. And so that's where I want to get to, that I think it's high time we all collaborate. So, yeah.
You're reminding me of a panel that was hosted by Accenture right after Davos conference this year. And they had the CEO from L'Oreal, the COO from Allianz Insurance, and the CFO from DHL. And they were talking about the application of AI to commerce and where were they in the journey. The thing that really struck me was, to an executive, they said, we have to think about this as up-leveling roles, not replacing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not laying off workforce. But the workforce will have the benefit of replacing repetitive tasks that's not stimulating with things that will use their innate creativity. I thought this was a very hopeful sign, by the way. And that means education has to be thinking with commerce in a very different way. And it goes back to what you both are talking about here. How do we create a learning environment that helps them learn to think? And what the gal from L'Oreal said, the very first course we wrote in the upskilling of our workforce was the art of the prompt.
Yep.
Right? How do you ask a better question? All right, educator. What's your call to action?
My call to action is to approach with curiosity, because it is important to take that critical step and ask ourselves, why are schools the way they are? Okay, let's reflect on that. And then what can we do to change them? What needs to change, and then what can we do to change them? And if we all step back and reflect on that critically, we come to the table with 20, 30, 50, 2,000 different ideas, and we can really innovate.
Yeah. What haven't we covered? You know, you've both been on, this is what, your third or fourth panel? I've lost count.
So have I.
What haven't you shared with the audience from your depth of experience and your longing for creating a really big impact in the education space that you want to say as your closing comments?
Yeah, basically at every stage of life, there is something which is fascinating. It was it the mainframes of the early or late 1900s, or the internet technology, and now the AI. I think a lot of things around us are sound awe-inspiring, and it's like I want us to think of technology as a tool, as a hammer, to go use it for our benefits. It's not meant to replace any workforce or replace the human capital. I think it's a technology created by human beings, and therefore we should not be scared of technology, and we should use it in the right way. So I want to use technology as a tool. Yeah.
And I would like for us to create schools that create citizens, right? Because it's not just about academics. It's not just the traditional test scores. It's not a teacher-centric way of learning. It's all the aspects of what makes us human. How do we bring that into the classroom, into our schools? To do that, we need to have community involved. We also need to rethink ourselves as educators. I mean, I am guilty as charged, because so often I'm thinking about academic outcomes. My background is in curriculum development and design, and I forget, oh, wait a minute, there's the whole student. There's every aspect of who they are and what they bring. And if we can get back to that, I think we'll have more equitable spaces where students are more prepared to be citizens of our world.
Can you say that
Yes, to create citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you, Donna. I think that's actually what education is about. Whether it's how am I in my family, whatever my family of origin is, in the friendship circles and the community circles, when I go to school at every stage, when I go to work at every stage of my professional career, how am I creating a better community together? And I think that we've lost some of that ethos. I certainly see it in the youngsters who are coming into workforce. Middle managers say to me, they don't know how to work. And I said, well, what makes you think they've ever learned what work is? That's not part of our educational system. And if both parents are working, there's not a lot of time at home to be able to talk about those things. And I think the educational systems could evolve to create more of a web or a fabric of what is the way of life as humans that we want to have as a society. And that's not unique to the United States. That's true on all the continents. So maybe we redefine education to be about creating better humans. Yeah, there we go. All right. We still have 5 minutes. So questions, what's on people's minds?
I got one for you.
Okay.
Because nobody has brought this up. I want to know what your views are for those kids who come up that they're like, well, college is not for me. I don't want to continue that. But who in your field are taking care of those who want to go into the trade? What about the trade? Where do we help those children?
Yeah, good.
That's such a great question. And if I go back in time to when I was a high school student, I went to a high school that had a trade school built into it. And over time, throughout my career, I've seen the trades slowly disappear. And about 15 years ago, when I was working with an innovative charter school, they said every student will go to college, right? First generation, here we go, 4 years of education. And I had a student who said, I want to be an auto mechanic. I've always wanted to be an auto mechanic, right? I don't want a 4-year pathway. It's not for me. And so that caused me to step back and critically reflect, like, wait a minute, what happened to the trades? Because I didn't even notice, right? I was so involved in my own educational journey. And I don't know that there are schools that are really doing much about it. And this is not my area of expertise. So if there's somebody else in the audience who actually has a response, that would be lovely.
So in North Carolina and lots of states, there's a dual enrollment program, and when they get to junior level in high school, and the purpose of that is for kids to do just that. If your school doesn't offer trades, it allows the students to go on and get those, and it's free tuition. And so my school, that is what we do. A lot of times the public sector utilizes that dual enrollment to push the 4-year college. It clears up a seat in their English classes or whatever, and logistically it works for them. But that's what I do. That is for the kids that say, I'm not going to go to college, I want to have a career, or I'll never be successful. It gives me an opportunity to put them in a trade class and say, while they have support from us, and it's free. And a lot of our kids, I've had 216 graduates all go on to a trade, some kind of college or military, and most of them graduate with some kind of certificate from college at the same time. So it is out there.
Yeah, it is.
And just more and more people need to utilize it and let the kids make the choice. They don't all fit the parameter of a 4-year college, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and it is out there. My best friend's son just graduated from high school, and he goes to a school where there's a trades program, and he is very interested in computer technology, so he's been taking college classes while in high school at the community college, and they have a collaborative relationship, and there's other aspects of that program as well. And I think what we could do is also look to other countries to learn. So if you look at Dutch education, there's differentiated pathways. So if you want to go into the trades, then you're at one level. If you want to pursue a 4-year degree, you're at another level. There's like 3 or 4 different levels of post-secondary education.
And also let me add that education, like the 4-year college or any higher level education, can come after you build up some knowledge in the trade too. So it's not like I learned a lot more from my master's course at Harvard because I had the practical experience. So that applies to the trade field too. I believe that right after high school, if you want to do some trade and then get back into the education system later, I think that's wonderful too, because you will now have like a solid background in what areas you wanted to build and build information on or build knowledge on, and the education system, you will see the education system from a different perspective at that time too. Yeah. Mm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Question for Lakshman. So technology. We are woefully underrepresented in coding and many, many ways, and we bump into problems all the time. When I get a iOS update, many times it sort of screws me up, and I think, if a woman was coding, I would not be doing this. So how are we going to get more women involved? And I don't know if you know Dr. Reshma Sugani's work, but she started Women Who Code, Girls Who Code, sorry, and it's really accessing that. But what do you see out there, and what do you see can be done differently at a younger age?
It's funny. I think when they, it's funny, not because of the comment, but let me take a step back, right? So when I look back in the industry, it is like, it's not necessarily, the computer science field is not necessarily only about the coders. I have seen women from all walks of life enter into technology, and there is a huge gap. The computers are nothing but a tool, right? If you take it that way, and it's there to meet people's needs. And where I have found great people are great women leaders and influencers are basically the people who bridge that gap between the people angle and the process or the technology angle, right? So while it's not all coding, it's all about what the code is nothing but I see as a medium to express for people to express to the computer. So it is it's an art, and while traditionally a lot of guys have picked up the field, I think women have succeeded a lot in talking to computers because they are awesome at talking to people too. So, absolutely, I welcome more contributions for sure. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both very much. It's been an honor to serve with you these 3 days, and I wish you well and safe travels home, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.